What's up, everybody? It is the UFC Vegas 77 Killshot MMA podcast main event. Holly Holm taking on Mayra Bueno Silva. Your co-main event. It's new. It's Jack Della Maddalena taking on Basil Haffez. And now, I'm going to give him a little bit of shine because I don't think it's that terrible of a fight. Albert Duraev and Jun Young Park, which was the co-main event that gets bumped. I have thoughts on this. We were talking beforehand. This card I don't think is that bad compared to what everybody's trashing it. You have McKinney on the card. He's always fun. You get to watch Jack Della Maddalena. Chelsea Chandler honestly makes the women's, whatever division we're going to call this, fun. You got Atman Azaitar, whose fights have been filled with knockouts. Like, there's a few, prelim fights, but it's not that Azat, who I almost forgot. Azat, I want to see what he is and if he's for real. It's not that bad of a card. The problem is, it's starting at pay-per-view time. I don't want to watch Holly Holm at 1 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast. As I've gone through all of that, my thoughts on this card, before even introducing myself, I go by Sniper MMA. With me for the Killshot podcast is Monk. Monk, how you doing, man? You ready for this card? What are your thoughts on it?
Very good. Like I was saying, man, I would pick this 10 out of 10 times over no card at all, for sure. I feel like John Travolta meme, if there's no fights going on. I'm just looking around. I'm like, time with the family? What are we doing here? I need to be watching fights. But so I'm a little bit excited. Got some decent fights. I think you picked some good ones there to rattle off. And of course, always love to see Jack Della Maddalena on a card. So I'm stoked, man.
So if you're new to the Killshot MMA podcast, we're going to go through things. Yes, there's a slight DraftKings spin on things, but if you don't play DraftKings, don't tune out. We're going to cover fights in general anyway, but there will be some DraftKings talk in there. If you're not playing on DraftKings, you're an MMA fan, probably go and check it out. And if you need help, advice, links are in the description to join us at DFS Army, get access with all those discount codes, promos. They're all down there. We got cheat sheets. There's VIP content. Come check all that out. As you hopefully play some MMA DraftKings. All right, all that being said, let's go ahead and let's talk about our first fight of the night. We start with the main event. We're not going to make you guys wait. We're not going to give you blue balls here. We're just going to start right with the main. Holly Holm, minus 180 favorite, taking on Mayra Bueno Silva at plus 155. The DraftKings salary, Holm is 8,600. Mayra Bueno Silva is 7,600. So, digging into this fight, look, I think we can all agree Holly Holm seems better everywhere. Like, I think she's definitely the better striker. I have a hard time seeing a world where Mayra Bueno Silva is going to get her down wrestling-wise. Maybe she pulls guard, because that's her path to victory here, I think, is finding a submission somehow. Or catching Holly Holm with just something reckless coming in. But Holly Holm is a world-class striker, and she's a counter striker. That's kind of what my concern is in terms of the DraftKings score, and even with 5 rounds of action, if Mayra Bueno Silva is going to kind of be in a mirror and be technical and just kind of try and pick her spots, I don't think Holm is going to press the action. I don't think she's going to look for takedowns like she has in some other fights where she's getting hit by big bombs and goes, I can take you down. I've been doing this forever. I can, she goes where she has her advantages, which is great for Holm, but for DraftKings, it means you kind of have to project things a little bit. So in terms of just how much I want to play this fight, it's right in the middle of the pack. It's not like last week where we had tons of finishes stacked up. I think Holm is better everywhere. I think Silva's live for a finish. She's not the deadest dog on this card, because at some point Holly Holm is going to get real old real quick. It's just what happens to fighters. Look at Kevin Lee, who, I honestly hope he is retired and wish him the best and good luck to him. But we were talking in that podcast, I've never seen an older 31-year-old in a long time. Like, he had a lot of miles in the tank. He fought a lot for a lot of years. Holly Holm, same thing, has held up pretty well, but I feel like at some point she's going to fall off. So the fight breakdown and the pick, I got to go skill for skill Holly Holm. A Mayra Bueno Silva finish wouldn't surprise me, though, because I'm like I said, I'm waiting for the wheels to fall off on Holm. Monk, what do you have for our main event?
Very well said here. Skill for skill, I agree, Holly Holm. And then Mayra Bueno Silva, of course, always live for that finish. So at 7,600, I will be interested to roster a little bit of her. She landed 2 takedowns against an older Lena Landsberg here, but the strength of schedule is nowhere near, for Silva as it is for Holm. As I mentioned, Silva fought Landsberg, Stephanie Egger, Wu Yanan, and then Manon Fiorot's no joke, but went to a draw with Montana De La Rosa. Will leave a bad taste in anyone's mouth. Holm, fresh off a victory over Yana Santos, 2 losses in her last 5. One was against Amanda Nnes, and then Ketlin Vieta as well. She beat the former title challenger in Irene Aldana, or recent title challenger. So she's looked pretty good. The only problem is in these, she's I think 3. What is her record here? She is in 5-round women's bantamweight fights. She is 3-2, and she's averaging less than 100 points per win. That's going to be an issue here, especially on a card with 25 other fighters or so. That could be a good enough score to make the optimal, but I mean, last week we just saw the highest optimal since I've been tracking scores. I mean, the scores were off the charts, so I need a little bit more from Holly Holm, and I just don't know that she's going to deliver on that. So I'm going to fade Holly Holm a bit, but I think she wins the fight. But give me Silva for GPP and DraftKings. Usually I'm on these 5-round fights, man. Someone makes optimal like 63% of the time. I just don't know about it this week. 86 is a good salary to play, but the numbers for Holly Holm just are not quite there.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see where I end up on this on the VIP show as I'm building lineups, especially the cash lineup. I kind of do them live, so I mean they're kind of stream of consciousness, kind of see how I'm thinking, and I hope that helps the members a little bit. But I don't know. Like my knee-jerk reaction was whatever it was, I think 2 weeks ago, was stack it. Just start here, stack, and let's move on. And last week I was like, we got 2 main events, you got 2 5-rounders, just going to stack one of them, and you go from there. This one, it's not the starting point. I might end up there, but tune into VIPs, tune in. We'll see how that's going to go. All right, Jack Della Maddalena. He is a -600 favorite. Basil Haffez, the Cage Fury champion, by the way, +425. So he's not a complete scrub coming in. Della Maddalena, highest priced fighter on DraftKings, 9,700. Haffez plus is 6,500 on DraftKings. Bunk, I know it's your boy Della Maddalena. Are you excited to watch him throw down here?
I am. I'm still going to be on the same side I was last week. I mean, I don't need to repeat all the stats. Just know that he scores, crazily from outside or at distance and inside the distance, even controlling 57% of all inside the distance fight time he's involved in. Granted, that's less than 14%, but it's still an interesting wrinkle to a guy that is pretty much primarily known as a stand-up guy. You know what I mean? So 114 points per win. I think he's looking fantastic. I have no problem rostering him here. 4 straight round 1 knockouts. Now he's going up against a guy on super short notice. Hopefully he was able to keep the weight, and that's the only thing that kind of partially worries me is the weight fluctuation, maybe, but I think as soon as his fight got called off last week, he was like, get me another one. I'm not going home till I fight, and good thing they did it because, plane tickets to Australia, you're not just going to throw that price out the window. You're going to get this guy a fight if he's in Vegas. So I guess Basil is somebody to consider, but I probably won't have much of him rostered. I think this should be a relatively straightforward win for Jack Della.
So skill for skill, I think you're right. You kind of hit on my big concern is that Jack Della Maddalena is going to have cut weight twice in a week. He made weight. He made weight before the fight got called off. He's going to have to do it again. I'm going to see what he looks like on the scale tomorrow, honestly. Maybe I'll be interested. I'm assuming he's going to make weight. Man, he must have been grumpy all fucking week. But as you cut weight twice like that, and he's shown a little bit of a hole in the grappling now. He's got that boxing style, great striker, big power, obviously really good. Amiv almost had him in, what was it, a Darce choke or anaconda, some kind of front choke. I don't remember if it was a Darce or anaconda, and it was relatively close. And you would think Haffez is going to want to grapple here. I think the skill discrepancy is too much, but those few things make me go, all right, I'm not going to full fade Haffez. Like I full faded. Who's some of the other just ridiculous stuff we saw the last couple of weeks? I can't even remember, but we had that card with like 9,700. Like
the professional Gardner last week.
Yeah, it was just there were some people. I'm going to X this person out. I'm not going to X out Haffez out of my player pool. I'll limit him, but I don't think it's a full on straight fade. There's a couple little concerns, but Della Maddalena is the pick. All right, we move on to what was the co-main event. Albert Duraev, +135 underdog, 7,700 on DraftKings. Jun Young Park, -155 favorite, 8,500 on DraftKings. This fight is me to start with. I'm going to take the dog here. It's the first dog I'm taking of the night. What's interesting is both these guys, they're pretty similar to me, and that I don't think either one is particularly bad everywhere. They're both kind of well-rounded, decent fighters, and both do their best work when they get on top. No, okay, great. I think if either one of these guys, whoever gets top position, is going to dominate. Like I'm picking Duraev, but if Park gets on top early, I don't see Duraev getting up either. It just comes down to, well, one, Duraev's the underdog, and it's a really close fight. But I do lean him straight up in terms of a pick anyway, not just odds-based, line value, because I think Duraev is a slightly better offensive wrestler. Because that's what I'm looking at here is, okay, if both guys, if all things are equal, who's going to end up on top? Who's the better offensive wrestler? I lean Duraev for that reason. It's an interesting fight in terms of the salaries at 8,500 and 7,700. They're right in that range I want to look to. Nothing, it's not like an all-in slam fight because we got a few better spots in the card that we're going to talk about. And the winner here, neither one is super high pace. It's like 7,700. They could score like 77, 85 points in a decision win. I see them in that range. Neither one has exceptionally good gas tank. I might actually give the gas advantage to Park a little bit, unfortunately, in terms of my pick, but neither one look great as it goes. It's just who's going to get on top. I lean Duraev for that reason. It's a really middling fight in terms of DraftKings. I'm more apt to play Duraev than Park just because of the salary. GPPs, I'll probably sprinkle in both sides and just kind of move on. There are some stronger takes I have in the card, but what really interests me here is that I am picking the underdog straight up. Monk, what do you have?
Yeah, not a lot of dogs on this card, and I'm kind of leaning towards the Duraev side as well. For DraftKings, Jun Young Park has made the optimal lineup 3 out of his past 5 fights, which is an impressive number. Somehow only in his last 5, though, scoring just 92.5 points per win. Got a ton of points put up on him against RoboCop here. Duraev at 7,700 is an interesting proposition. While he only scores 80 points, not even 80 points per win, I do like the wrestling upside. And it's funny that you mentioned the control time numbers, as in whoever you thought was going to be on top was going to control the shit out of this fight and just kind of dominate. Duraev so far, 30.5% of his total fight time inside the distance. He's controlled 94% of that time, so that's spot on. Meanwhile, Jun Young Park, 48% inside the distance. He controls almost 70% of that fight time. So I love that analysis. Last thing I'll say here, a little bit of salary voodoo. The $7,700 salary is one of the best underdog salaries as far as performance by far. In fact, 31 times out of 99 uses against 8,500, it's made the optimal. And when it wins, 64.5% optimal. So I think this is a great play. You should get some leverage too. The average ownership there, 24%. And as you heard me say, it makes optimal 31% of the time. So there's like 7-8% leverage right there on those numbers alone.
Interesting, especially when you land on a guy you like anyway. Interesting spot.
Exactly, yeah. Then it's hard for me to get away from that. It's a blessing and a curse.
Speaking of a blessing and a curse, you got the UFC featherweight division. Is that a good transition here?
It's perfect.
They were having this fight at 145, right? I'm not even 100% sure. I'm assuming Norma Dumont didn't cut off the leg to make this fight, right? She's big. Anyway, we got Norma Dumont minus 145, 8,400 on DraftKings. Chelsea Chandler plus 125, 7,800 on DraftKings. We just talked about not a whole lot of live dogs in the card. I think this is another live dog, but are we going to pull the trigger on the pick? Monk, you're first.
I think I am going to lean Chandler, probably for a pick and probably for DraftKings as well. It just comes down to Norma Dumont and her inability to score any kind of DraftKings points. She has the lowest DraftKings points per win rate on the entire card. It's really not close. 74 points is all she scores on average.
What did she score last time? Because I feel like that last fight.
Hossa, she put up 63 in a decision, 92 against Daniel Wolf, but Daniel Wolf had one career fight before that. And then 71 Aspen Ladd and 66, almost 67 against Spencer. So at this point, it's still a pretty small sample size, but pretty consistent in that sample size as not putting points up at all. Meanwhile, Chandler, only one fight. You pretty much got to throw that out. But if you don't throw it out, she did score almost 5 points a minute against a subpar opponent in Julia Stoliarenko at 140. And ended up
submitted Jessica Rose Clark for all you Sims.
That's true. Yeah, exactly. And she put up 111 points in that win. So I'm going to probably be fading Dumont for DraftKings. And I think the straight up pick is going to be Chandler. Did make the optimal lineup in her last fight. I believe her salary was $8,000. So she's 200 cheaper than that. Maybe she can pull something off here against Norma Dumont. I don't mind having a little bit for DraftKings.
So I think that Chelsea Chandler actually makes this fight interesting for DraftKings. Just being stylistically, she's going to march forward and she's going to throw. Dora Dumont has got to answer it. She just has to answer. Like if you look at the fights where Dumont doesn't score well, I get your point, but it takes two. Like she didn't score against Macy Chiasson because she lost and got taken down 6 times. Danielle Wolf, she should have scored better in that fight. She had a knockdown and 2 takedowns. The Carol Hossa fight, neither one of them threw a lot. Dumont actually got knocked down in that fight. Aspen Ladd over 5 rounds threw 33 significant strikes. Like it takes two. And Chandler, my point is Chandler over 3 rounds is not going to be held to those numbers. She's going to be aggressive. That's why I think she's live, though, because I'm not sure if Dumont can stand up to the pressure. But skill for skill wise in terms of a pick, I do think people are hopping off Dumont a little bit early here. She is 5-2 in the UFC with her losses going to the giant Megan Anderson and Macy, who she couldn't stop a takedown. I don't think Chandler's going to wrestle here. They're going to stand and throw. I think Dumont's got all the skills, and I think people are hopping off a little bit too quick in terms of a straight-up pick. And Chandler's presence and pressure might force this fight to be higher scoring than you think. And this is another one of those situations that I'm going to point out a few of these pretty much every week on this podcast where it's not going to take a lot to get over the field and have leverage. You don't have to. I'm not saying go 40% Dumont, 30% Chandler. No, you can probably get leverage with Dumont at 25%. Quite honestly, that's probably enough in GPPs. No, I'm not saying she's one of my favorite plays. I like her more than the field does. And it's because of that Chandler's going to push the pace and the pressure. And I think that's going to force Dumont to score a little better than she typically would. And she's not going to be heavily owned. So pick, I do like Dumont. Chandler is a live dog, though, because she's one of those, if she wins, she's going to score well. There's another dog coming up later that I'll touch on, hopefully remember, that even if they win, I don't know how you score very well. So in her wins, I think she will score well. So just some DraftKings analysis there to go with the fight pick. The pick, by the way, is still Norma Dumont. Let's talk about this fun one. Atman Azaitar, -115, taking on Francisco Prado, -105. This line's been flipping back and forth between the pick'em sides here. Azaitar is 8,000 on DraftKings. Prado is 8,200 on DraftKings. And I may have I falsely led everybody a certain direction with some of my analysis here. And that I said this should be a fun one. Atman Azaitar's never been out of the first round. Big knock, a huge inside the distance prop in this fight at like -280. I'm going to call a timeout on this one. Atman Azaitar doesn't throw. There's just no volume there. I want to pull it up real quick. I know Monk's usually the numbers guy, but I'm gonna borrow real quick here. His 3 UFC fights. He's the first one against Teemu Packalén. He landed 27 strikes, and sure, Teemu Packalén, great. Kama Worthy was a quick knockout, and then Matt Frivola. They kind of stared at each other for a while. He doesn't throw a lot of volume. I watch those fights. He just doesn't seem super aggressive. And that's what I'm worried about here is that eventually one of these fights is not going to finish in the first round. And these volume numbers, I'm not convinced we're going to see a huge number. On the other side, you got Francisco Prado, good showing, I guess, against Shane Malarkey in his UFC debut. Good old smack in the butt. And good job. He kept coming forward. He got taken down a bunch and way to show up. And now you got Atman Azaitar. Unfortunately, this fight is right in the mid-range in salaries. We're going to need to play that -280 number. I'm actually thinking the field's a little bit too high on this one. I get the numbers. I can't help but think they're going to stare at each other for the first round, and we could see something big in the second round. And just the regression I've seen out of Azaitar from Packalén to Kama Worthy to Matt Frivola. Granted, I rate Frivola pretty highly. I mean, from Long Island, so I kind of have to. But I do think, regardless, I think he's a legit top 15, probably borderline top 10 fighter. That's kind of where I put his ceiling. Maybe he'll prove me wrong and I'll be rooting for him, but we'll see what happens. With that regression here, you look good against Teemu Packalén and Kama Worthy. Is Francisco Prado at that level? Maybe. And steps it's one of those guys that got pushed hard off the regional scene, big power, and those type of guys. The second your big power stops knocking people out, you're usually pretty fucking helpless. And that's kind of what I think is happening to Atman Azaitar. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick Francisco Prado. I'm not sure he's going to get it done by finish. Quite honestly, on the regional scene, actually all his fights ended via finish too. I for some reason something keeps calling to me Prado via submission. I don't know why. It's the read I keep getting on this all week, but I like this fight on DraftKings. I'll say play both sides. I would say this is not an all-in slam everything into this fight. I was trying to look up some of Azaitar's pre-UFC stuff, and he was in Brave was the promotion, which isn't of those promotions, Middle East, Asia, Russia, all that that side of the ocean, not the worst, but I don't know. I'm seeing regression. And was he the one? Help me out real quick. Was he the one who
in Abu Dhabi?
With the
bag man.
Yeah, the bag man and the steroids, right? It was we all thought it was steroids, and it ended up being like COVID protocols. It was this Azaitar, yeah. So is he off the juice? Because you come off the juice, some bad shit's gonna happen. Yeah, I don't know. That's all hearsay, but I lean towards Prado. Monk, who you got?
Yeah, I'm thinking this is kind of a 50-50 fight, and the odds would kind of agree with me there. As far as the striking goes, and the DraftKings points for striking per minute, Azaitar is actually in the top 5 on the card overall in his 3 fights. 2.82 striking points a minute, 1.32 knockdown points a minute. That's best.
That seems so weird to me that he's got that high volume.
Second and fourth. Well, it's the short fights. Timu, he landed 27 strikes, but that equates to 7.6 strikes a minute.
Because Timu got knocked down and he swarmed him.
Right, Worthy was 10.32 strikes a minute, and then for Vola, he only landed 10, but it was good enough for 4 strikes a minute. So the numbers, it tells a different story for sure. That's why you always got to do your fight tape as well. But yeah, scores 4.2 points a minute. That's third best overall, 104 when he wins. But there is definitely regression. Against Pacquiao, he put up 111. Against Worthy, he put up 15 points less than that. Obviously a better name. So, and then for Vola, we all saw what happened there. Prado, if you're just looking at the numbers, I mean, I think you got to throw this Malarkey fight out. The guy scored 1 point a minute. That's it. He allowed 3.5. I really can't take anything else from it. Both guys' strength of schedules are trash for the most part. Prado is just like 5 points worse than Azaitar. I don't know, man. The last thing I'll say is 12 of 13 wins from Azaitar. He's finished, and he's been finished in his 1 loss, while Prado 11-1. Let's see, all 11 wins. All finishes. His 1 loss did go to decision. So, yeah, tons of finishes here. Hopefully we don't see, a plus, a minus 600 something or whatever, like any of those Tyson Pedro fights or any of those fights everybody thinks is going to finish inside the distance, and then it goes the whole way. Hopefully we don't see that, but I guess I'm
kind of rooting for that. I'm rooting for it.
I guess I'll favor Azaitar just because he's $200 cheaper, but I'll have some of both sides here. Also, Prado's head is gigantic, at least in his UFC picture when he's like standing profile. His head looks like Squidward's house. It's crazy, man.
Squid. I have no better transition than that. Let's just move on. Terrence McKinney, plus 115, 7,500 on DraftKings. That is some odds value as this line is closed. Everybody and their mother appears to be on Terrence McKinney. He takes on Nazim Sadykhov. Oh, I think I butchered that. I'm going to call him Nazim the rest of the way. Minus 135, 8,700 on DraftKings. Monk, you're first for this one.
Yeah, I think this is an obvious one to target for DraftKings. Unfortunately, everyone also thinks that as well. So it's going to be a very highly owned fight. So you're going to have to find ownerships and figure out exactly what you want to do here. Terrence McKinney, round 1 darling, whether he's winning or losing. 7,500 this week. Guy scores 5.5 points a minute, almost 110 when he wins, and we get those numbers. We get some crazy DraftKings numbers this week for 7,500. Has made the optimal lineup in 2 out of his past 5. But Sadykhov, he won over Elder, and I think it was due to a cut stoppage at the end of the second round, and he only scored 77.5 points. So this one's going to be interesting. It's either going to be McKinney super early, or McKinney's chin will fail and Sadykhov will win super early, or this one could go to decision. I mean, I don't really know what to think. I have a hard time believing that a McKinney fight would go to decision. So I think I'm going to be rostering this one. Probably more McKinney just because he's so much cheaper. But I think there is a spot for Nazim here. And I think he's going to go way under-owned, actually, because everybody's just on McKinney for DraftKings. They see that guy's name and they just want to roster him. And for good reason. When he wins, he does so in the first round and scores a shitload of points. We'll see what Sadykhov does. People are going to see that 77 average and just fade the crap out of him. So if you don't like McKinney's chin, this might be a decent leverage spot here.
I don't know if people are going to fade the crap out of him. I think this will be, like I said in the open, a really popular fight. And that's one I'm not going to get cued on. Just until McKinney doesn't come out like a man on fire, I'm going to assume he's going to every time. McKinney's either going to finish or get finished. Love the fight style. It is super fun. You mentioned the Nazim and Elder fight. Elder was up 2 rounds to none on all 3 scorecards before that cut stopped the fight. We'll talk about him in a little bit here. Obviously Nazim can be hit. McKinney leaves opening 2. It's going to be wild. It's going to be fun. Give me Terrence McKinney straight up pick, but play plenty of this fight in DraftKings. And this is a spot where I'm going to struggle with this with cash games too, because this is classic floor versus line value. Because plus 115, 7,500, it's hard to ignore. And if it keeps climbing, you go to build lineups and you get 7,500 at minus 110. Do you favor that? Or do you, because McKinney can also score 7 points and get knocked the fuck out. It's going to be a balancing act there. So we'll see where things shake out when you're building lineups. I do love the fight to target. I will also favor Terrence McKinney ever so slightly as another dog pick. Tucker Lutz, plus 135. He's 7,000 on DraftKings. Take on Melsik Baghdasaryaan, minus 165, 9,200 on DraftKings. Look, Melsik has some clear holes. He showed it last time out against Josh Kulibau. He can be grappled. He can be submitted. And in theory, Tucker Lutz can do that. I just think Tucker Lutz is going to take so much damage trying to close the distance that he's either going to not do that anymore and just Melsik's going to pick him apart for 15 minutes and win a comfortable decision, or he's going to force it and get himself knocked out. If he can get inside and I'm wrong, if he can get the takedown, he's live. So I can't not call him a live dog. We've seen the holes in Melsik's game. I just don't think he's able to do it. I like Melsik to really just outstrike him, kickbox him up, maybe get a finish late. The price tag is a little bit high for DraftKings. Not my favorite play, but I do like Melsik. And in terms of line value, bring it back up real quick. Yeah, 9,200 for minus 165. That's not great. That's the opposite of line value. In fact, if you want a line value punt for DraftKings, Tucker Lutz is probably up towards the top of your list right now because plus 135, 7,000. It's not a bad look. You should look to grapple. On paper, Tucker Lutz is going to be live for your cash game build. I think he's a live dog for the reasons I mentioned. I just think Melsik keeps it on the feet, does his thing. Monk, what do you have?
Yeah, I agree. I think Melsik's way too quick here. I was very unimpressed with Tucker Lutz in his last fight against Pineda. And just the pacing overall kind of tells the tale. Melsik doesn't really score a bunch anywhere, but inside the distance, he scores 4 while giving up 4.6. The problem with that is Tucker Lutz is getting outscored everywhere, but especially inside the distance. He doesn't even score 2 points a minute. So I'm not too worried about that. Colin Anglin was able to take Melsik down, and Melsik popped back up. Anglin only ended up with 4.39% control time in that fight. So hopefully Melsik will be able to get back up if he gets taken down. And if that's the case, I don't think Tucker Lutz has much of a chance at all here. So I like Melsik at what's his salary? 9,200 this week. I think he's good for cash. I will have a bit of him in GPP lineups, probably as a little interesting pivot. I won't be focusing on Melsik in GPP lineup by any means, but I mean, if I knew he was going to get a finish, I would definitely do that. But the last thing I'll say, Tucker Lutz allowing in his 2 UFC losses 103.63 points per loss. So at 9,200, that is a decent little value spot there, maybe almost 11x. And yeah, I don't mind Melsik for cash and a little bit in GPPs as well. Maybe a tiny sprinkle on Lutz. I'm not full fading him by any means, but I'm just very unimpressed.
Not opening up what I wanted to open. What the fuck? There we go. Technical difficulties aside, we move on to Estela Nnes. Plus 170. DraftKings 6,900. Take it on Victoria Dudakova. Minus 210. 9,300 on DK. As a little bit pricey. Women's MMA fight. Been plenty volatile the last few weeks. Monk, who you got?
Yeah, I don't usually I'm kind of giving more preference to the UFC, the person with more UFC experience. In this case, it would be Nnes. I don't know if I can do that this week. I mean, Dudakova scored decently well in her Dana White Contender Series fight if you put those stats to the scoring model. But here's the big thing. Estela Nnes, her opponents score almost 5 points a minute on her and are averaging almost 109 points per win when Nnes does lose. Uregi made the optimal lineup. Sam Hughes made the optimal lineup, and Ariane Carnelosi made the optimal lineup. Estela Nnes puts people on the optimal lineup. She can't freaking grapple. Now she's going against a grappler. Yes, she's only got 6 pro fights against those Russian no-name people that you've never heard of that you talked about earlier. That said, man, I mean, I'm giving Dudakova a pretty decent shot here at 9,300 to get a grappling finish, get a submission. Like I said, I mean, Nnes put 3 straight people on the optimal lineup, and now she's getting a 4th fight. It doesn't make any sense. I don't really trust her, and I don't think there's any reason to trust her too much. I mean, yeah, she looked okay in the first round against Uregi and then completely fell apart. Uregi's not trying to take her down, though, so I think if there's any grappling success for Dudakova, Estela Nnes does not have much of a shot here. That said, I will have some portion of ownership on Nnes for the reason I said UFC cage time going against someone with very little to no experience.
Yeah, and you add in the just women's MMA in general, the volatility at this price range, and sure, take a stab at the underdog. My real problem here is I'm wondering exactly what game plan Dudakova is going to have. Dudakova, I think, primarily is a striker. She ended up grappling in the Dana White Contender Series fight, if I remember right, because she got hurt mid-fight and she still won the fight. And she can grapple in the path. It just, she's got solid striking. She could stand and trade with Nnes and pick her apart. The grappling is there. It's probably the easiest path to victory. Just this 9,300, I'm like hemming and hawing, and it was probably easier to play more of her when Jack Della Maddalena wasn't on the card. Now you're like, well, shit, play a few more. I will say I think I prefer Dudakova over people like who else in there, like Evan Elder up in that range. So I favor her more for that reason, because the grappling upside is there should she choose to use it. When women's MMA, what's interesting is with these low-level type of fights, the type of fights that score well, there's a lot of finishes in the regional scene because they're low-level, and there's just more there's more volume, more finishes, people a little more reckless. Was as you get higher up the food chain, like the main, last pay-per-view aside, when you start getting higher up these pay-per-view cards, there's more decisions because it's high-level guys and these bigger chess matches, and sometimes there's more at stake, but it's also just they're both better. Women's MMA in general, sorry, it's still growing. It's still more volatile than the men's side, and now you got not only just a women's MMA fight, but a low-level women's MMA fight. It's hard not to think there's some real upside here, and not to mention people tend to shy away from it. So I like Dudakova. I don't even know how much Estela Nnes I can play, because this is one of the ones where if she wins, is she going to score that big? Is she going to pull a Denise Gomes to get that one-punch knockout, which was okay. I just took that one on the chin. I didn't have a lot of Gomes last week. And shout out to contributor Vince, who was on Denise Gomes. But even if she wins, I get it. I mean, do you really need to call the 130? Like, I could see, she gets a win, 80, 90 points. Nobody else wins. She's great. I think I said that. We saw the path there. But the one punch minus or 130 points. I don't think Estela Nnes is going to do that, but I mean, fuck if I know, I guess. Dudakova is the pick and the play. Moving on to Austin Lingo, taking on Melquizael Costa. Costa's the favorite, minus 240. Come back on Lingo's plus 205. Lingo's 7,100 on DK. Costa is 9,100. I guess this is me first. This is an interesting fight in that I think this is probably one of the more volatile fights on the card. Both guys like to stand and trade, stand and bang. I think they're going to stand and bang until one man falls. It's got a pretty big inside the distance prop. I think it's a great fight to target. I actually think the line is a little bit wide. Just a refresher, it's minus 240 to Melquizael Costa. The type of fight this is going to be, I think that's just too big. I would favor him. I think he's a little bit better, a little more technical, but I keep getting the sense of this technique is going to go out the fucking window in this fight. And they're just going to stand and trade and let's see who's tougher, bite down and go. And not they're both not tough. It gives Lingo a really live shot. I like him. He's one of my favorite GPP plays in the card because of how insane I think this fight is going to be. I think of the dogs I'm not picking to win, he'll be right up there towards the top of my exposure list. Volatile fight. For that reason, I'm not going to jump off the Milko Costa train totally. And in fact, I'm going to give him my pick straight up because I think it is like I said, it's a firefight. It's a one-man falls. Straight up pick. I'll pick the more technical guy who I think is a little bit better, but just beware of the volatility in this one. Should be a really, really fun fight. I'm looking forward to this one. So I don't understand why people are shitting on this card. There's a few fights I've said that to, and we haven't even got to the guy I'm most excited to watch fight yet. But anyway, Monk, who you got for this one?
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a good fight to target here. 9,100 for Costa could have some value. You got to throw all his stats out the window, man. It was a short notice fight. He was up against Thiago freaking Moises. What are you gonna do? He was like 26 years old, barely at the time. Yeah, throw those numbers out. I think this is a good matchup. Like you said, probably not a ton of technique, just some wild throws for the most part. Austin lights out Lingo. We'll see if he can live up to his name. You know, this guy again, and this is a common theme here. Like with the Stella Nnes, etc. Austin Lingo, 4 UFC fights, almost an hour of UFC cage time, even if he is 2-2, and he's going up against a guy with less than 10 minutes. So before we throw all of our backing into Melky Costa, let's not forget that we've seen it time and time again where the more experienced guy kind of gives the rookie or so a little bit of a lesson. So not throwing Lingo out completely, but his scoring is terrible. 82 points per win over his 2 wins against Saldana and Jacob Kilburn here. I'm just not feeling it from Lingo. The pick's going to be Costa. I don't mind rostering him in GPP lineups. I don't mind a little of him in cash either. But like I said, keep Lingo in the back of your head. I'll probably be at least 20% on him just because he's so cheap this week at 7,100. If Costa makes a mistake and gets caught, that could be it. So that's going to pay off. I just want to be sure I'm over the field on Lingo.
Yep, I'm down with that for sure. Let's talk about Genaro Valdez taking on Evan Elder. Elder's a favorite, minus 300. Valdez, the comeback is plus 250, and he's priced at 6,800, while the favorite Elder is at 9,400. Monk, Elder, one of the biggest favorites on the card. I think we both kind of insinuated not our favorite play. Who you got?
Yeah, I'm fine with him in cash. He can be in a ton of cash lineups. I think that's a pretty safe pick. Genaro Valdez. Actually, neither of these guys, first of all, one of these guys has to win. Both of them with 0 UFC wins. But obviously, like you said earlier, Elder was basically winning that Sadykhov fight until that cut stopped it after the second round. Looked not the best against Preston Parsons, but that was his first UFC fight. Who's looked worse than that is Genaro Valdez. Got KO'd 16 times in one fight by Matt Frivola. Gave up the most points that we saw in all of 2022. It was like 158 or something crazy like that. Valdez then follows that up against good competition. Again, Natan Levy gets beat up in that fight pretty much, giving, what was that, 95. So it's not 158, but almost 100 points. I just don't trust Valdez yet. He's given me nothing to trust him about. He just is a wild man, it seems like, and I'm here for that for DraftKings. So I'm not going to be full fading Valdez by any means at 6,800 if he even gets a win. If he gets a win, first of all, I'd be shocked if it was a decision. So it would probably come inside the distance, probably the earlier than later, I would imagine. But the ultimate pick is Elder, probably by decision, in which he probably doesn't score very well. That would be my play. So Elder for cash, a little bit of Genaro for GPPs, and that's pretty much all I got for this one. I want to see, really, this is a show me fight. I want to see what the winner of this fight is going to look like.
Yeah, it really is, and it's hard to get a read on Valdez because he had faced Patrick White in the Contender Series, and then he's got Natan Levy and Matt Frivola, who are both legit UFC lightweights. Frivola is ranked now. I don't know if Natan's going to get ranked at some point, but he's a decent prospect. So it's hard to really get a read on him. There's Evan Elder, same kind of thing. Preston Parsons couldn't stop a takedown. That was his problem in that fight. And he was beating Nazim before the cut stopped that fight. So it's keep going back and forth. And I'm on the Elder side because he's shown me more. I think he's a little better, a little more technical. But Genaro Valdez is a live super dog, and I don't like Elder for cash, only because up in that range you have to play Della Maddalena before you play him, and I'd rather play Dudakova or Melsick up in that price range. So just not at minus 300, I get it, but I think there's other options I'd look at in that range. And Valdez is live as a super punt. Yeah, it's when we have a few punt options. Skill for skill, again, I have to go with Elder. He's shown me a little more, but I'm aware the competition we have seen Genaro Valdez against is elevated, much higher than the competition that Valdez has seen. So for that reason, just alone, all right, just like you said, it's a show me fight. I'll still pick Elder, but it is with a little bit of skepticism. I'm not super confident in this one. Moving on, we have Tyson Nam. He's plus 315 against Azat Maksum, minus 415. He's 9,600 at DraftKings, while Tyson Nam at 6,600. And if you've watched anything I've ever done before, you know I've loved grapplers, so you must know I love Azat Maksum, because just in that open, he shot for 3 takedowns. I swear to God. I mean, he's somewhere like it's all the dude does. You talk about relentless wrestlers, what Geek loves to preach all the time. This guy is that. It doesn't. He'll throw a punch, maybe, but he's going to shoot behind it. He just shoots and shoots and shoots and shoots again. And for DraftKings, that is exactly what you want. What's interesting is Tyson Nam does have 100% takedown defense. So you go, huh? Really? I start digging in though. Like it's guys like Bruno Silva knocked him down, Ode Osborne, Matt Schnell, Jerome Rivera, Zaruk Adeshev, who he knocked out in 6 seconds or whatever the fuck that fight was, Kai Kara-France, Sergio Pettis. Not a ton of grapplers on that list who are trying to take him down. I know he's defended some, but he's going to have to defend a lot to win this fight. A lot. Azat Maksum, I think, is a real deal prospect. I know, aside from, I guess, probably could have guessed I was going to say that because I love grapplers, but he's 16-0. He's fought in Brave. He's fought in the Octagon promotion. His last one was over somebody who's 8-0, 12-6, 8-4, 12-3, 5-0, 7-3, 5-1, 6-0. Not total scrubs. And it's Octagon. They're not high level, but he's not can crushing in Alaska or Brazil. Well, that's who it was last week. The Terrence, I already forgot your name. The hell was his name?
Terrence Mitchell, the Tear Bear?
Yeah, that's it. He's who I played none of. And he actually, props to him, came out aggressive. So, look, Azat's for real prospect. Tyson Nam, I don't think he's going to be able to keep up. Tyson Nam does have big power for 125. That's what he's going to have to do here. He's going to have to find a shot, a big knockout shot, a knee uppercut as Azat closes. Call me a sucker for grappling. Give me Azat. I'm all about it. I think he wins here. If it wasn't for, he's probably still one of my favorite plays in the card, period. Even with Jack Della Maddalena. I love Azat. And that's scary because it's, Tyson Nam's got a shit ton of UFC fights and we got a newcomer. But to be a minus 400 as a newcomer, that should tell you what the bookmakers think and why we're all thinking this way. And he's got plenty of DraftKings upside. So, Monk, who you got?
Also, Tyson Nam, almost 40 years old. But yeah, I'm a sucker for grapplers as well. Obviously, as a DraftKings player, that's what you want to see. You nailed it. The strength of schedule, while it is, sub 70, the way I calculate it, it's still a 68, which is exactly what Tyson Nam's is. So usually we see guys coming in, debutants, in the 50s or 60s, low 60s. He's almost where you want to see him at 70 for the strength of schedule. So I definitely don't mind that. Like you said, he's not crushing 0-3 guys, 1-6 guys, stuff like that. Nam has looked good when he wins, but he's going to rely on a very early knockout. Also, I mean, how are you going to not back a guy that comes out with that flag, with probably a dead animal on his head, and 16-0, 11 finishes? Like, I'm going for the grappling here. Azat, it's going to be hard for me to not start a lineup this week without JDM or Azat at the top of it. I will do it. I will get a few of of those guys not in my lineups, but yeah, Azat's going to be a big play for me as well, and I'm really excited to see what he can do here against Tyson Nam. This could be one of Tyson Nam's last fights as well. So has not been fighting too frequently. In fact, since 2020, it's been once a year. So just keep an eye on that. Who knows how much Tyson Nam wants to be here, especially against an undefeated 28-year-old grappler who has got a decent strength of schedule.
Let's talk Carl Deaton III. He's plus 160 against Alex Munoz, minus 185. Munoz is 8,300. Deaton is 7,900. I have a pretty aggressive take on this fight. Although it's not going to be a hot take when you just kind of look at the odds and analyze what's happened the last week. With that being said, I'll kick it to you to start, Mike.
Yeah, I'm going to... Man, Carl Deaton's stats have to be thrown out. He's fighting Joe Selecki. I don't know if that was short notice. I probably want to say it was. Otherwise, that fight really doesn't make much sense at all. Got finished in the second round. Landed one strike in almost 10 minutes. So obviously he was getting controlled almost 90% of that fight. So not really a striker's advantage, you could say. But one strike leaves a lot to be desired. Meanwhile, Munoz, he leaves a lot to be desired as well. Puts up a good defense, though, allowing just 2.5 points a minute, and 69 is all he's given up on average over his two losses so far to Luis Pena and Nasrat Haqparast. I think he's going to have a gigantic wrestling advantage here, and I think if he employs that game plan, that he's going to be able to, control Carl Deaton, much like Joe Selecki did. So I don't think Munoz is at the level of Selecki by any means, but I'm also unsure as to what level Carl Deaton III is at. So this is another one of those show me fights, man. Both guys without a win in the UFC. Who's going to want it more? That's what I want to see. Is it going to be Munoz with a wrestling, grappling, domination style? Or is it going to be Deaton coming in there, making up for his last fight and not letting this kid grapple with him? Now, he's not a kid. They're both 33 years old, but you know what I mean. The pick's going to be Munoz. And I like Munoz for DraftKings. Not going to full fade Carl Deaton, but man, 0.28 points a minute is nothing to write home about.
So here's my concern, and I'm all about Munoz in this one. He's gonna be my pick. The grappling advantage should be there. That should be how he gets this fight done. He did it on Contender Series. He did it even his UFC fights, even the ones he didn't win. Like he took down Nasrat Haqparast, which is no small feat. You got to take down. He took down Luis Pena 4 times, 4 takedowns in his Contender Series fight. Deaton 33% in the UFC. Takedown defense, it's not great across the board if you go back and watch the PFL tape. Like the path is there. I think, and that's why the line movement is that way. It's a pretty significant path victory. Everyone seems to be on Munoz. I am as well. The one thing that just holds me up just a little bit is that he's not fought in 2 years. And he got a fight canceled against Herbert Burns. Burns is the one who pulled out of that fight, and then no fights for 2 years. I believe ring rust is a real thing. It just is. It takes a little bit to get in your rhythm and groove, and he needs to grapple in this fight. And if he just is a little bit off, or who knows what he's been doing, maybe he's just fighting out his contract. I don't really know, and guys will never tell you. So I have that slight bit of hesitation, but in terms of analyzing the skills, I think Munoz grappling runs away with this fight. It's just those intangibles that you really can't handicap that worry me for this one. But Munoz will be the pick, and the fact that we're getting, minus 185 at 8,300, that's huge line value. It's going to be really hard not to have that in your cash game lineup. All right, we go to the featured bout of the night, the great curtain jerker. You guys ready for Ashley Evans Smith versus Eileen Perez? Eileen Perez, how the fuck you say her name? I don't really care, quite honestly. Look, I know we have a bunch of content behind the paywall at DFS Army, which you guys should go check out. I'm going to give you guys a golden nugget from my GPP article from this week. Actually, first we'll go to Ashley Evans Smith is plus 200. Perez is minus 235. Smith is 7,400. Perez is 8,800. I was saying that golden tidbit you won't find anywhere else. And bring that to this podcast. If you haven't realized it, this fight is an OnlyFans model against a future OnlyFans model. Make sure you guys pre-register for Eileen Perez's twerking OnlyFans.
That's right.
Because it's coming.
Coming to a PC near you.
God. Look, I will say this. At least she's been fighting, and at least she's aggressive. She's going to move forward and throw and press the action. Jokes aside. She got finished by Stephanie Egger. I kind of think both Zara Farim and Haley Cowan probably would have finished her too. Like, she's having a hard time actually getting a fight. Whereas Ashley Evans Smith is, of all people, to take a fight. She hasn't fought since 2020. November 22. COVID wasn't a thing the last time. The last time Eileen Perez, the last time Ashley Evans Smith fought. That being said, her three of her, you go back to her UFC losses. Like, she's been in the UFC a long time, since UFC 181. She has lost to Raquel Pennington, Ketlin Vieira, Sarah Moras, and I don't have a problem with, but Sarah Moras is the only thing Sarah Moras did in that fight was catch an armbar. Andrea Lee, who's legit, and Norma Dumont, who's bigger than her and legit. And you go, okay, well, shit. People love to make jokes about Ashley Evans Smith, and I do too, but there's 3-5 in the UFC. She's legit. It's just she hasn't fought in 3 years. And I think, and what I really think is going to be the difference in this fight, I'll tell you what, if Ashley Evans Smith had a fight before this Eileen Perez fight, I'm not even sure I care who it was. I think I'd pick Ashley Evans Smith. Not being in the cage for 3 years and fighting against somebody who's going to come forward and be aggressive, I think that spells trouble for Ashley Evans Smith. Especially at this number, I'd be like, take Ashley Evans Smith, and I would be catching all the shit. And maybe I'll still catch shit on YouTube for just that comment that I would pick her, but I can't do it with the ring rust. You know, her UFC wins, by the way. I should do the other side. Beck Rawlings, yippee. Veronica Hardy, Macedo, sure. Marion Renault is a legit one, by the way. That is the third one. That's a legit win. That's back in 2016 when Marion Renault was still Marion Renault. So she's decent. And Eileen Perez, I don't think is decent. It's just Smith is old and is going to face a pressure fighter. So I'll take Eileen Perez. I do think Ashley Evans Smith is a dog to consider. I think she's a live dog at 7,400. It's one of those, again, low-level fight. Let's see what happens. So I have to pick Perez straight up, but I am not happy about it at all. Monk, who you got?
Yeah, I wish I could pick Ashley Evans Smith because I don't want to pick Eileen Perez. This was the woman against Stephanie Egger who raised her hand after getting submitted and then went on to say how she should be fighting for the title and that every woman in the division was scared of her. And it's just like, what the fuck? Are you trying to be Dylan Dennis or what are you doing exactly? Because no one's buying it.
Oh, how I would be great if Bruce Buffer announced her as Eileen, the female Dylan Dennis Perez.
Yeah, all she needs is a video of her getting submitted by like a school teacher or something like that. But yeah, I just can't back Ashley Evans Smith. You talked about ring rust for our guy Munoz. This is even longer. This is ring rust plus like an extra 7 months or something like that. She's 1-4 in her last 5 against decent competition, like you said. I mean, they're all pretty good names who have gotten wins recently. Beck Rawlings win, not the best, but she's also not scoring well on average. 2.5 points a minute, just 82 points in that Rawlings win. The only thing that's stopped, I mean, Stephanie Egger put up 110 points on Eileen Perez here. So I honestly think this one could be a sneaky fight to target. And I hate that I'm saying that, but I could see Perez finishing Evan Smith early. Like, what's Evan Smith doing here? What's her motivation? We could see that happen. We could also see Ashley Evans Smith, put Perez in her place when no one's expecting it, and you're going to get all of a sudden big value on a $7,400 fighter that no one is going to roster. So
I will say I think this is my least favorite fight on the card. It's just
I agree.
All right, I guess I'll play a little Evan Smith on this bullshit card.
Yep, I will. That's exactly how I feel. I don't like the fact that I'm thinking about being over on this fight, but I kind of am. I just think Perez has a chance to get it done early.
Oh, God.
It just makes me sad. The whole thing makes me sad.
I don't think I'm going to do it, but I get your take. It's not – yeah, I get it. All right, let's talk kill shots, guys. If you're not new to the podcast, or even if you're returning, regardless, do me a favor real quick. I didn't ask at the beginning. Hit that like button. Smash the like button. Hit subscribe. Tell your friends. Share the podcast. Decent showing last week. I'm trying to get these to over 1,000 views a week. Let's do that. The first video to get to over 1,000 views, drop a comment, and I'm going to give away 3 DFS Army t-shirts. So 1,000 views got to be, and then start doing comments. Just comment in. I don't care, and then we will hook you up. I get UFC 77 might be a hard sell for the first one to get there, but I'm going to keep mentioning it every week until we get to over 1,000. All right, Kill shots. If you're not familiar with kill shots, under-owned play that could break the slate. So Terrence McKinney, even though he's a dog, doesn't count because that's going to be super, super chalk. I'm going to go first this week because motherfucker over there stole my pick last time we were on the two-man. I don't know if we would have stolen it anyway. This is one I just don't think people are going to be on. Albert Duraev. So I'm going to go Duraev because I think it's the dog I'm taking to win. And I think whoever wins this fight is going to have sneaky upside with wrestling. It's also just a play on. I don't think many people are going to own this fight. It's just not going to be hard to get overweight to. I think it is sneaky with wrestling, and I like me some grappling. So Albert Duraev will be my kill shot. Monk, bring us home.
I love it. I'm also going to give you one that I think could be a little sneaky, and that's going to be the B side of the Norma Dumont fight. I'm going to pick Chelsea Chandler as my kill shot. I think she has a shot to win, and at 7,800, I think she could score well in a win as well. So give me the Norma Dumont fade here, and I'll take Chandler as my kill shot this week. Not a lot of options if you're really looking into it, but I think that's a solid one.
Yep, I like it. You got more picks and plays from our other contributors, articles, all that stuff within DFS Army. Again, one more time, check those links when you go down to smash that like button and drop a comment. Hope you guys enjoy the fights for UFC Vegas 77. That's all we got. Monk, anything before we get the hell out of here?
No, sir. Check out my stuff on the Monk Maddox channel. Other than that, man, yeah, let's go. We still got fights on Saturday. Let's enjoy them.
Exactly. I don't want to hear anybody bitching about, this card's so bad. You can bitch about how late we're up watching the card. I think that's fine. But you know what? Give me fights over no fights. So that's what we got for UFC Vegas 77 on the Kill Shot MMA podcast. Subscribe or fuck off. Is that a good tagline for us?
I love it. I think it's concise. It's clear. It's to the point.
I feel like geeks and what the fuck are you doing? Either way, guys, whatever you are playing, bets, contests, good luck in whatever you're doing. We'll see you next time. Later, guys.